if they had been Black and said the same thing,
Mhm.
would you had totally cut them off? And the reason why I'm asking is because I'm from Texas and I was taught things and I have said things that I didn't even know was wrong.
Well, the reason I cut her off is because she showed no remorse for it. And if she was Black, whatever, I would have done the exact same thing because I choose to not live in that space with anybody.
In this show titled Healing Race, can anything ever be healed when parties have an incentive not to come together, or when one is critically dependent on the other?
Can I challenge that just a little bit?
I was just thinking, Michelle, that it must be really difficult not to be who you are or to think or to check yourself all the time because you feel like you have to represent a group. That's got to be really, really tough. And even I'm just imagining, how do you get to know people if you don't feel like you can be who you are? Or how do people get to know you?
But Randy, you've never felt like that as a woman? Like that maybe you were the only woman in a professional setting, for example?
I was in nursing and social work. I was one of a lot of women. So
Okay.
I don't think I really felt that way too much. But I mean, I have been in situations where I've been like at a party or something, and I love to talk politics. I'm one of the few women. The women will be over there talking about decorating their house, and I'm interested in politics, and I get ignored. So that's the only way I can think of that reminds me of that. I mean, I just absolutely get ignored. And there have been times I have said to people, shut up and listen, because they thought I had nothing to say. So yes, as a woman, I can relate to that.
Yeah, and to answer your question, for me, there are times that it's harder than other times. But I've been with my current company for 9 years, and I have taught them to know me. And what I mean by that is, for instance, my hair. When I started with the company, I call it oppressed hair. I had to flat iron and, so that I would look, presentable per their, per those people's standards. And by those people, I mean the people that were interviewing me, by the company, because again, no one looked like me. And I wore my hair straight for years. Then the pandemic hit. And then the Crown Act. Are you guys familiar with the Crown Act?
No.
So the Crown Act is in California.
Oh, yeah.
And specifically, it had to be created so that Black, specifically women, but no, men too, would not be discriminated against because of their hairstyle. So, mine is naturally curly. It's not straight. It's wow, it's puffy. I love it. It is me.
Beautiful.
Felicia has braids, which are traditionally, for Black people. Something like dreadlocks are traditionally worn by, Caribbean Black people.
Or a flat top. If you're a Black dude, I like flat
Exactly. Those type of hairstyles, you didn't get a job because you didn't fit. And I will tell you, just as recently as probably a couple months ago, I'm still working from home, which I love. I hope we never go back to an office every day. But I went into the office, and mind you, so many people have not seen me in the last, 3 or 4 years. We don't do a lot of video chats. We communicate through Teams, but it's usually IM telephone. So I go into the office, and the senior vice president of sales was in, and he came over and he looked at me and he said, wow, you got a lot of hair, white male. And I said, don't be jealous. I see yours is thinning. And he just kind of looked, and I laughed, like, don't come for me unless I send for you. But again, my hair, there's nothing wrong with my hair. But if you look up beautiful hairstyles, mine is not going to pop up because Eurocentric hairstyles are what's going to pop up, not mine, or, not Felicia's. Maybe now,
Right.
more so, but
Right.
not in the last couple years.
Right. Or if you look at professional hairstyles.
Exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. So we had to aspire to a certain standard just to get a job in corporate America.
And that standard was set by whiteness.
You had close friends, a lot of cross-racial friends. I'm really interested of how if you experience barriers to sisterhood across racial lines along the way as you developed those friendships.
My friend Heather, like I said, Heather is Jewish, but I had been exposed to Judaism early, so I had a clue. I'm pretty sure I was her first Black close friend, but we were in drama together, so we had that commonality. And I would go over to her house, and I remember one time her mom made latkes. I happen to like them. And her mom was like, oh, let me explain. I was like, you don't need to explain. I know what these are. But to see that she felt like she needed to explain, I decided to take it as that she wanted to share with me, a part of her religion. But I chose to take it that way because I could have taken it as, you think I'm stupid? You don't think I know what a latke is? You don't think I know what a kosher meal consists of, or, whatever. But I chose to take it in a different way. But it was still a little where I had to, in that moment, I had to make a decision, and I recognized it as me making a decision.
Well, that's interesting, Michelle, because in a way, I would never, if somebody comes to my house who isn't Jewish, forget about the color, and I'm having a meal where they may not be familiar with the foods because they're Jewish kind of foods, I would explain, no, we eat gefilte fish and what it is. And I would never think it was that they might take it like I'm thinking they're stupid. So it's interesting that you had to step back and you had to think about it and reframe it and give them grace or the benefit of the doubt, which I think was the appropriate thing for you to do, because she just sounded like she was trying to share her culture.
Right. And again, I had to stop. But you know what, Randy, this goes back to what I said in the very beginning of when I used to teach diversity classes. You don't know what's in someone's backseat.
Yeah.
So me as a Black woman, all my life, these are the types of things I've had to deal with.
Yeah.
And so it's almost second nature. That's why I said I had to make a choice to give her grace. And I don't think I knew exactly what that meant at the moment, but I chose not to take it negatively and just explain why I didn't need her to explain.
People think
With
we're
someone else,
cultured, etc.
yeah.
This has been very helpful to me because it also helps me understand the couple that came over to our house and where they may have been coming from, rather than thinking that, they just were they just thought we were racist, which, like you said, Felicia, is just a term. But, I don't know what was in their backseat, and I don't know what they were carrying to my
And
house.
this was, what year was that when that happened? Do you happen to remember?
Oh, it's going to give away my age.
Well, no,
Which you
but
probably
if
figured
it's,
it was
think
in
about it, if it's in the
1970s.
80s. Oh, yeah. Yo, so think about it. Think about it. We're all running on stereotypes, right? So I can only imagine, first of all, they probably were already anxious getting the invite, probably felt like, well, in order for you to do well at this company, you better accept this invite, right? And then probably getting some kind of weird, funky advice on how they needed to show up, how they needed to dress, how they needed to act, how they needed to, because again, you're thinking, this is my home and I'm just inviting some folks over. We're gonna have a good time. And they're thinking like the weight of the world is on my shoulder right now.
And I need to keep my pinky finger raised when I take a sip. This is how white folks live, baby. White folks raised.
Especially in the 70s. Like, oh my
Yeah,
God,
yeah.
this was the beginning of affirmative action. And
Right.
the Negro that was chosen had to be the Jackie
Robinson.
Jackie Robinson of corporate. Like, that is a lot. But then mind you, look how it affects all of us. It's a lot for all of us.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what hit me about this has hit me so far about this conversation is actually even more than the stereotypes we carry around and worry about that we bring to these conversations is I honestly don't know, like, you know, specifically Felicia and Michelle, when I heard some of the experiences that you just shared, the specific experiences, not the stereotype. I mean, the like losing a friend or being rejected by a boy.
Yeah.
You know, it gives me, I mean, how could you not have that experience and just wonder about the interactions that you have, right? Is this going to be another? Am I going to, you know, for you, am I going to invest in another white relationship? And then they're going to be another, what was her name?
Valerie,
right? You know, we all carry these experiences, the ones that really hit us. Losing a best friend is a big experience. How could that not just, you know, if I don't want it to affect you, I'm not saying, Felicia, I want it to affect you, because not everyone is that experience. And, you know, anyways, you know what I mean? But it's all to say, I can see the challenge in opening up, right? I can see the challenge in having the wondering, is this going to be another one of those kinds of experiences? Yeah, anyways, that hearing those things has been really profound. And I think it says all the more about those moments when you have the ability to show grace, right? Because you have to, you know, that moment, Michelle, that you talked about where you have to step back. I have to imagine, you know, that all those experiences you've had are in that moment, right? You're not just stepping back from a stereotype, you're stepping back from real experiences that have had an emotional impact on your life. So it's not just construct, it's experiences and emotions.
No, literally at that moment. And I remember it because it affected me. Was I started thinking about all the things that I'd have experienced. And then I also thought about their last name, again, hopefully nobody knows them, is Sandler. The Sandlers had always been very nice to me. They didn't treat me any differently or, you know, anything. And so all of those things went through my mind at that moment. And that's when I made the decision, you know, to educate as opposed to take offense.
Yeah. And it seems like you've always had that counterbalancing force as well. Like you had that experience in what did you say? What was the grade that you went to the other school? 11th grade?
No, 4th grade.
When you went to Tarzana, right? You had that experience, but you also had the previous experiences of engaging, or when you got rejected by Brian. Did I say his name right? Brian
Driscoll.
You know, you had that other person telling you that, you know, don't worry about that. Those fools, right? There are other people in this world. They're not all going to treat you that way. It seems like you always had, which how do you navigate that tension? How do you navigate the balance of the experiences of stereotypes or prejudice or rejection, but also the experiences of welcoming and inclusion, or at least the hope that there are other people out there? What's that like for you to navigate those two potential realities?
So one, I follow a quote by Maya Angelou: when someone shows you who they are, believe them. And people always show you kind of their true, you know, who they truly are. Sometimes it takes a little more time. But when you show me you're not a good person, and whatever that may be, if I hear you, like I had a friend that I used to work with years ago, and she was in HR and she was white, and we were going to lunch together. Her, I, and another young lady that was also white in HR. And so we're driving to lunch, and this guy, you know, I'm sure he didn't see her, kind of crossed over into her lane, and she had to, you know, kind of brake a little bit. First thing out of her mouth was that towel head. And I looked at her and I'm thinking, what do you call me when I'm not around? You know, if you get upset with me and, you know, all of that. And that was the last time Like I dealt with her on that level because you've now shown me that you have these biases towards, a person, instead of just saying, dude probably didn't see you. You were in his blind spot. He didn't turn and look at it. Okay, you're not a good driver.
Yeah.
But she automatically went to, because he had a turban, he was probably sick.
Yeah. Sick. Yeah.
But that was where she went. And after that, I'm, oh, let's go to lunch. Nah. And finally she said, why? And I said, I didn't appreciate what you said. She's like, what are you talking about? And I said, I didn't appreciate what you said about that man. Because a towel head? Like, do you know how racist that is? And she just kind of looked and, like she was shocked. And I said, what do you say about me when I'm not around? You call me out my name? Like, do you not see yourself? Because I see you. And I said, you got some work to do, especially because you're in HR.
Did you tell her that, Michelle?
Absolutely.
Good.
One thing that I don't do, and I'm not good at this at all, is hold my thoughts back. I try to formulate them in the way that people can understand and that they'll listen, because if I come off angry, they're going to not hear me. But I'm blunt. And, like when I said earlier about corporate America, I'm the only one that looks like me. I've educated so many people, over the years as to, this is me. I'm not going to be who you think I should be. I know I'm damn good at what I do, and you're going to need to respect that. If you think of me in a different way, you better keep that to yourself, because it's going to be a problem. It's definitely going to be some repercussions from it. But I give them the opportunity to know me as I know them. Like I said, the guy that, talked about how much hair I had, we worked together for the entire time that I've been there. I know him well. I know he didn't mean to come off, the way that he did. So that's why I made a joke, but a joke that got his attention.
Michelle, I
And
have
you
a
could
question.
see. Go ahead.
I have a question for you. If that person you were in the car with, if they had been Black and said the same thing, would you had totally cut them off? And the reason why I'm asking is because I'm from Texas and I was taught things, and I have said things that I didn't even know was wrong. Like I really didn't. Like the most one that comes to mind the most is saying, oh, this guy gypped me. I didn't even know that was derogatory until like after college, and somebody pulled me to the side and was like, why are you using this word? And I'm like, what? And my grandma said it. Like, I didn't even know what I was saying. I didn't even know. And so I think I would respond. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I would have responded the same way you responded. But in this moment of trying to reflect and be in humanity and not, in all the things, I realized like, oh, wow, what if I had friends that just cut me off when I said something stupid and I didn't even know I was saying something stupid. Now, towelhead, I don't know. That's kind of hard.
Yeah.
That's real racist. But like, I know some Black people that probably would say that. And I've had to educate, like, hey, you can say that's stupid. That's just like when they call us this or that. But I know I wouldn't cut them off unless they decided to just live in that ignorance. And then I'm like, nah.
The reason,
wondering like your take on that.
yeah, no, the reason I cut her off is because she showed no remorse for it. And so this is truly what you believe. So I can't be around you. And if she was Black, whatever, I would have done the exact same thing, because I choose to not live in that space with anybody.
Anyone.
I've had friends that are Black that they are homophobic. I don't deal with them.
Me neither. Yeah.
So yeah, it's not about your outside. It's really about your inside. And so if this is what you think of a person, I can't mess with you, because you're going to get us in trouble one day.
especially in a reality where we know Black women make far less money than white men, and they make less money than white women. And then with me making sure that everyone knew just how much influence white women have over our lives, especially since many of them tend to be our primary school teachers and caregivers, et cetera, then exactly what in this show titled Healing Race, can anything ever be healed or worked out when parties have an incentive not to come together, or when one is critically dependent on the other?
Can I challenge that just a little bit? Because, okay, so I'm a woman who had to work extra hard to get ahead in her career, because almost everybody at this level, we were all women. At this level, they were all men, et cetera, et cetera. When I broke off and formed my own business, I found it, I believed it, and then I experienced it to be advantageous to hire the person who was of a different background, someone who was an immigrant, someone who was a different, like a person of color, someone who didn't come up the stereotypical way through the academic and professional route, because those people added so much more to the team, to the picture, to what they offered to our clientele and so forth. It was to my advantage. I mean, now maybe I started out doing that because I had values other than, I admit it, I had values other than increasing the bottom line as my first objective.
Mhm.
But the experience that I had really bore out the validity of making those kinds of choices. So we have other inducements rather than self-promotion.
Would you say the strongest, would you say for white women, race could be one of the strongest, if not the strongest inducement in order to preserve what agency white women have been able to gain over the years?
Yeah, if that's the case, I'm probably not as aware of it. And I don't understand sometimes when I kind of understand it, I'm trying to understand it, but coming from the perspective of a woman and knowing what the maleness has to do with it, a little bit.
So what you're, so Marietta, just to be clear, so what you're saying is the feeling empowerment as a woman was more important, played a bigger role in your motivations than any way you might have felt empowered as being white. Am I understanding your response?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you think led you to, let's say, when you started your own business, to hire more diversely? What was the motivation for you? What was the inducement, as Andre puts it?
Use your big words.
Why did you make those decisions?
Well, it was experience. And I think partly I fell into it because maybe those candidates were more available to me because they hadn't fit in somewhere else.
Mm.
But after I started working with people who didn't fit in somewhere else, I found the value in that. So my personal experience taught me that was a good route to follow.
Thank you for watching this episode of Healing Race, and stay with us for a scene from our next video.
If you want to see more conversations like the one you just watched, please subscribe to our channel, share this video with friends and family, and like and comment on the video below.
If you'd like to be a guest on one of our episodes and have an open, real conversation about race, email us at guests@healingraceshow.com.
And if there are topics you think we should cover, we'd love to hear them. So please email your ideas to topics@healingraceshow.com.
As always, thanks for your support. We look forward to continuing the conversation with you. Now, here's a scene from our next Healing Race.
We're people of color applying, and we're women, and Black and white women applying and not getting in. I mean, I'm trying to understand.
Yes. The code word is, I don't think, Randy would be a good fit for this role. Or I don't think Randy would be a good fit with the company culture. And initially it bothered me, but I'm like, okay, I need my job. I've got, 4 kids, got to keep them fed. And then I'm like, you know what? The hell with this. What does that mean? Not a good fit.
To watch the rest of that episode, go ahead and click the video below me.
To see a different compelling Healing Race episode, you can click the video below me. We look forward to seeing you in the next video.